Good morning, everyone. My name is Ashley Richardson. I'm an attorney with the Mississippi Center for Justice. Again, for the people that is on Zoom, as you log in, we ask that you put your name, sex, race, and whether or not you have a disability in the chat. Just put a simple Y for yes, N for no. And again, my name is Ashley Richardson. I'm an attorney with the Mississippi Center for Justice. The Mississippi Center for Justice is a nonprofit public interest law firm that's committed to the advancement of racial and economic justice. I will allow for my co-workers to introduce themselves to you guys.
Hi everyone, my name is Fatima and I'm housing attorney at the Mississippi Center for Justice.
My name is Denise Antoine, and I'm the project manager for the ENO grant at the Mississippi Center for Justice. I'm also the office admin and the student coordinator.
So why are you here today? We're going to try to get you a little bit of information to learn about the Fair Housing Act. So we are provided to do this presentation to you today through a grant provided by HUD. So this presentation is interpretations of the Mississippi Center for Justice, and it's not exactly the interpretations for the federal government, and they are not to be held responsible for the interpretation of this PowerPoint. What you'll learn today is what the Fair Housing Act is, who is protected under the Fair Housing Act, properties that are covered, what reasonable accommodations and modifications are in regards to disability, information needed to file a complaint if you believe that your rights have been violated under the Fair Housing Act, and who you can call. What is the Fair Housing Act? The Fair Housing Act is a federal law that prohibits discrimination in the area of housing. So when I say federal law, that means it applies to all states. So it was passed in 1968 after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King. When it was originally passed in 1968, it had 4 protected classes. Those 4 protected classes was race, color, national origin, and religion. It was amended in 1974 where it added another protected class. That protected class was sex. It was amended the last time in 1988 to actually be known as today where it added 2 additional protected classes. That was disability and family status. So again, what is the Fair Housing Act? It is a law that prohibits discrimination in the area of housing based off of those 7 protected classes. So again, those 7 protected classes are race, disability, family status, national origin, sex, religion, and color. These are self-explanatory. I'm just going to give a background, a little bit of background with each of these. Race, simple, black, white, Asian, etc. Disability, that's whether or not someone has a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities such as walking, talking, breathing. It can also, if someone is perceived to have an impairment, or if someone has a history of an impairment. Family status, simply the presence of children in the home. And pregnant women, they are also covered under this protected status. National origin, that is the origin of a person's ancestors, the country of which they originated from. Sex, male, female. It also includes gender identity and sexual orientation. Religion, a religious group someone might belong to, or religious belief that they might have. Atheists is also covered. They don't have a religious belief. So again, they are also protected. Color, that is simply skin tone. Now, what transactions are covered under the Fair Housing Act? It includes residential home sales. It includes apartments, homeowners insurance. When people go try to get homeowners insurance, if they are treated unfairly, again, based off of one of those 7 protected classes, it can be a violation of the Fair Housing Act. The denial of reasonable accommodations and modifications in regards to disability. We're going to talk about that a little later in the presentation. Mortgage loans. So this includes any stage of the mortgage process when someone goes to buy a home. Approvals, denials, simply how someone is treated when they walk into a bank. This can also be an action that could violate the law. It also applies to realtors, landlords, newspapers, and ads. You might see, I don't even know if they do that anymore, where they have a session in the newspaper or someone might put on Facebook or something like that. I'm selling a home. No kids allowed. Remember, family status is a protected class. So when we have language like that, it could be an action that can violate the law. Basically, all areas that are connected with residential housing. Type of houses that are covered, it includes apartments, apartment complexes, houses, houseboats, homeless shelters, migrant farm worker housing. Under the Fair Housing Act, they look at housing and they call it a dwelling. So that's basically a place of which a person intends to return. It can be a vacant land or anything like that. So if a person intends to return, it can be covered under the Fair Housing Act. Now that we know what the Fair Housing Act is, we're going to talk about actions that can actually violate the law. Differential treatment, what is that? That is an action that can violate the law. Basically, it is intentional discrimination, treating someone differently, again, because of one of those seven protected classes. An example of this might just automatically outright treating someone different because of their race. I go to rent an apartment, or I go to buy a house, they don't want to sell the house. They don't want to rent an apartment to me. Because I'm black, because I'm a woman, because it possibly I come with my children and they don't want to rent to someone with a child. Again, intentional discrimination. So that is an act that can violate the law. Differential treatment, again, just a simple way to remember, intentional discrimination. On the other hand, we have disparate impact, which is not intentional discrimination. So what this might be, there's a policy and it applies to everyone the same. There's a policy that when you look at it, it does not target a specific group, such as those seven protected classes that are called out. But in the actuality of practice, it does target a specific group. An example might be the policy of the 1 heart beat per bedroom. Under this policy, it says that when you go to rent a house, only one person can stay in per bedroom, 1 heart beat per bedroom. Let's say if we have a family of 5 to go rent a 3-bedroom apartment. Under this particular policy, they won't be able to rent this apartment, right? Just a family of 5, they go to rent a 3-bedroom apartment, they violate the statute. So although when you read the policy itself, it doesn't target a specific group, but in actuality practice, it targeted a family, right? And if we remember, family status is a protected category. So this is also an action that can violate the law. Other actions is refusing to rent or negotiate. For example, I go to rent an apartment, they automatically say, well, we don't have anything available. But I send Mr. Hale there to go rent an apartment. Same day, they have something available for him. I say, well, they didn't want me to stay there because I'm a woman. I went, they told me they didn't have anything available, but I sent Mr. Hale when they did have something available. So that's discrimination. Refusing to rent or sell or negotiate for the sale or rental, or even failing to accept or consider a bona fide offer. What is bona fide? A genuine, truthful offer. So if I go to buy a 30-bedroom mansion, and I tell them, you know what, I will pay you $10 for this 30-bedroom mansion. And they say, no. At that point, I cannot scream, well, they didn't want to sell it to me because I'm black, because it wasn't a bona fide offer. But if I give a genuine offer and they say no, and let's say again, I send Mr. Hale with that same offer and they tell them yes, I can then go and say, you know what, I gave a truthful, genuine offer and they didn't want to sell that home to me because I'm a woman, or because I showed up with my children and he showed up without his family status. We also look at using different qualifications criteria or application standards procedures. So we might see this possibly if someone goes again with children and they say, well, because you have children, we would like for you to stay on the first floor. Because you have children, they move around a lot and they might bother the neighbors downstairs. So we require children to stay on the first floor. This is the action that can violate the law. Why? Because it limits particularly family status. It limits families from being able to choose the type of home that's available. So let's say that they don't have anything on the first floor, but they have something available on the second or third. Because you limit my choices to first floor, again, you're limiting my own choices. I should be free to say what floor I'm gonna stay on. Or it could be something as simple as evicting tenants because of one of their protected classes, or even because of their gaze. Again, based off one of those protected classes. Other actions can be using different provisions in leases or contracts. Say if someone black goes to rent a home, they add different provisions, no loud music. But it wasn't someone's white contract. You're given different terms, again, based off of one of those seven protected classes, and it can be an action if valid law. Failing or delaying maintenance or repairs. Let's say we have someone who has a leaky faucet. They put in a maintenance request, and it might take them 3 months to come respond to that maintenance repair request without any good reason. But let's say that their neighbor also puts in a repair request. They come respond to theirs the same day. Again, the difference could be is one person is a woman, one is a man. It took you long to respond to mine, why is that, without any good reason. could be an action that can violate the law. Another example could be failing to process an offer or communicate an offer accurately. We see this when people go to buy a home, where they put in and say, well, I would like to buy this home for this price. Instead of realtor particularly don't even relay an offer to the homeowner. This can also be an action that can violate the law. Another action might be limiting use of privileges, services, facilities of an owner, tenant, or a person associated with her. Or places with swimming pool. Can't just say, well, children cannot come to the swimming pool. Again, that targets family status. Another example might be assigning certain applicants to a particular area of the neighborhood. Can't sit here and say that our women stay in one building, our men stay in another. Families with children stay in one building, families without stay in another. Again, the Fair Housing Act was created to promote inclusivity. So when you sit here and segregate people again based off those separate classes, it can be an action that can violate the law. Giving untruthful information is also an act that can violate the law. This can be done by words or conduct. That a unit that's available to sell, they might say it's not available when the actuality is. I gave an example where I went to rent an apartment, they told me they didn't have anything available, but I sent my friend Mr. Hell and they had something available for him. They say, on the other hand, I go to rent an apartment and I say, well, I'm looking for a 2-bedroom apartment within the range of 700 to 950, which may not be realistic during this time. Let's say I'm looking for something between the areas of 700 and 950. They say, well, we have something available for 950. But they also have something available for 700, but they did not communicate the information to me because they don't really want me to rent it. They want me to say, you know what, that's at the higher end of my price range. So I'm gonna go shop around and see if I can find anything cheaper. So they gave me untruthful information. I gave them my range, but they gave me the highest price possible when they did have something still within my range at a lower price. They can also be an action that can violate the law. We have a quick video here. It's also, again, going to give an example of discrimination.
Hi there, I'm interested in a 1-bedroom unit.
Hola, ¿hablas español?
Oh no, I don't speak Spanish. Do you speak English?
No.
Well, is there someone here who can help me?
No comprendo. No apartments aquí.
But I saw a sign outside that says that there are apartments for rent here. Gloria, you speak Spanish, right?
Sí, amiga, what's up?
Well, I saw this great building with a sign that said apartments for rent. I went into the manager's office, but the person there claimed he didn't speak English. I think he said something that sounded like no apartments here. It didn't feel right, and I think he was just trying to get rid of me. Do you think you could come out here and check it out?
Sure, I'll go in while you wait in the car. Hola,
Hola?
¿tiene apartamentos de una recámara?
Sí.
Perfect, I've been looking all over this neighborhood for a nice 1-bedroom apartment. How much is the rent? Oh, by the way, my name is Gloria.
Mucho gusto. Apartments are $600 a month, plus first and last move-in costs. Would you like to see an apartment now?
Sure, I have my friend waiting for me outside. Let me go get her.
Excuse me, Gloria. Are you Mexican?
Yes.
Good, that's good.
Why does it matter if I'm Mexican or not?
I like to know who my tenants are. That was very quick.
So you do speak English. Why did you refuse to consider me?
I didn't think you would feel comfortable here. All my tenants speak Spanish.
Well, according to the Department of Fair Employment and Housing, by the way, here's their card, it's against the law to refuse housing to someone because of their race or because they're from a different country.
I'm very sorry. I didn't mean to break any rules. Please, allow me to show you the apartment now.
For additional information on fair housing laws and procedures for filing a complaint of discrimination,
So what you just saw in that video is an example of fair housing discrimination. When she originally went in, she wanted to rent an apartment, and he said, well, we don't have anything available, or at least he said it in his language. She then went and got her friend, and her friend also went in, they did have something available. So this is untruthful information when I just spoke a true example in real time. So when it comes to that, that is an action that can violate the law. Also, what he also said to her is, well, I didn't believe that you would feel comfortable here, which is also action. That is something that we call steering. It is not up for the landowner, the realtor, or anyone to tell anyone, I didn't believe that you would feel comfortable in this neighborhood. I didn't believe that you would feel comfortable here at this apartment complex. It is up for the renter, the home buyer, all of themselves to take upon themselves to know where they will feel comfortable. So when we look at that, they can also build action, they can violate the law. Harassment in housing is also illegal. This includes sexual harassment, racial harassment, hostile harassment, coercion, intimidation, and retaliation. There was a case where a Black police officer was going to buy a home and invited his female co-workers to come over to look at the house. They were going to buy, and they had a Black police. When they went there, they was looking at the house, the neighbor came out. The neighbor was white. And the neighbor said, you better hope that that house doesn't catch on fire, because if it does, it's gonna burn to the ground. I'm gonna find out this neighbor was a firefighter. They sued the neighbor, Black police officers and the realtor, and they won. The court said this is racial harassment and it is illegal in housing. When we look at sexual harassment, we look at someone is proposing a trade-off. Well, I'll fix this for you if you do this for me. If you go on a date, it's sexual harassment, and it's also illegal in housing. It also includes maintenance employees, everyone. This also includes harassment by employees and even other residents or neighbors. Now we're going to get into discrimination based on disability. One does not have to receive a disability check in order to be considered disabled under the Fair Housing Act. So 3 ways one can have a disability: a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or major life activity, having a history of impairment, or being perceived as having an impairment. What is a reasonable accommodation? Someone has a disability. They're asking for a change in the policy. If someone might have an apartment complex or a housing provider, they're asking for a change in the policy to accommodate them to stay there so they can live there in full enjoyment because of their disability. An example might be a change in the due date of rent. They say a particular tenant, they receive a disability check and they get paid on the 7th of each month. As we all know, rent is due on the 1st, depending on where you stay. Late fees might start applying on the 3rd or the 5th. But because I received my disability check on the 7th, I'm asking for a change in that policy. I know the policy is that rent is due on the 1st of each month, but I'm asking, can I pay my rent on the 7th of each month? Because that is when I receive my disability check without the late fee. Again, I'm asking for a change in that policy due to my disability. So that is what we call a reasonable accommodation. We might also see reasonable accommodations when people ask for service hours due to a disability they might have, physical or mental impairment. Another example might be a reserved handicap parking spot. I can't walk that far. Parking lot is always full. So I'm asking, I know the policy is first come, first served parking, but I'm asking for a reserved handicap parking spot closer to my apartment so that I can access it quickly. Again, based off my disability. So when we look at the policy in place and we're asking for a change in that policy, it is a reasonable accommodation. When do accommodations have to be made? They have to be made if it is reasonable. The request also has to be connected to their disability. It must also be acted upon within a reasonable time, because if not, it might be seen as a denial. And if it's seen as a denial and it should have been granted, it is also a violation of the Fair Housing Act. We also look at reasonable modifications when it comes to disability. On the other hand, a reasonable modification is a physical change to the structure. So although accommodation was a change in policy, remember, our rent is due. But when we look at reasonable modifications, we're looking at something physical, a physical change that I'm asking you to make to help me with my disability. Let's say that I have a particular disability where I cannot turn the doorknob handles, but I can do a slap door handle where I can get into a room quicker. I'm asking for you to change the door handles to a slap door handle so that I can access the room. I'm in a wheelchair and you have the thermostat set too high that I cannot reach it. I'm asking you to lower that thermostat for me, a physical change. So when we look at that, that is a reasonable modification. Another example might be to add shower bars in the shower. I might slip easily due to my disability. So can you please add those shower bars in the shower? Again, when it's a physical change, it is a reasonable modification. I have also another quick video here. I know you guys, it's about time to eat. I just want to make sure you guys are paying attention. After watching this video, I want you guys to tell me if it's a reasonable combination or a reasonable modification.
Hello? Hi, I'm calling about the apartment you have advertised for rent. Is it still available? Great. I'm looking for a place for my husband and me. Right, I understand. The rent is $1,200 per month, and our income needs to be 3 times that amount to qualify to rent. That's not a problem. My husband and I earn about $6,000 per month. 2 o'clock this afternoon? Let me check. Can you hang on a sec? Hey, Jeff?
Yeah, what's up?
Can you see a place this afternoon at 2?
Yeah, I think that'll work out.
Great. Okay, I'm back. My husband Jeff will meet you at 2. Yes, he knows where it is. We've been by there many times. Okay, thanks very much. Bye-bye. You know, I'm really getting tired of making calls and looking at places, Jeff. Do you mind going without me this afternoon?
Yeah, don't worry about it. Take care of yourself this afternoon.
I was really hoping you'd say that. If you like the place after you see it and you think it'll work, it's okay with me if you go ahead and submit an application.
Okay, I'll do that.
Have any other questions?
No, I think everything looks great.
You and your wife sounds like you're responsible people and you'd be great tenants. If you just fax that application back to me this afternoon, if it all checks out, the place is yours.
Great, thank you so much, Paul. That's really great news. Now, there's only one other thing that I need to ask for that'll make this perfect, and that's that we're going to need to have one of these parking spaces up front assigned to us.
I'm sorry, I can't do that. None of the spaces here are assigned. Everyone takes the spots that are open. First come, first served.
Well, you see, Paul, the problem for us is that my wife, Susan, had a pretty bad accident a while back, and now she's primarily using a wheelchair to move about. She can sometimes use a cane, but even still, she moves pretty slowly and she can't get about very far. That's why it's so important for us to be able to have a parking space nearby at all times.
The other attendants would be up in arms if I assigned you a space. They'd all demand their own spaces. I simply can't do that.
Oh, well, I'm sorry to hear you say that, because, you know, it's so difficult for people in wheelchairs to find housing that's accessible. Your apartment is perfect for us, and I know that we would make great tenants. And after you speak with our current landlord, you're going to find that we always take great care of our unit, always pay our rent on time, and of course we would do the same thing for you here as well. Plus, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but the California Fair Employment and Housing Act states that it's unlawful to discriminate against people with disability in housing. If you tell us that we can't have a parking space assigned to us when we need one as an accommodation for disability, we could be breaking the law.
Well, I don't really want to get in trouble, and I can't see that this is going to cost us anything. If people complained, I could tell them that there were special circumstances that required the assignment of a specific space. Subject to the approval of your application, we'll go along with it.
Great, thank you so much, Paul.
Fine.
I'll get this back to you right away this afternoon.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Yeah, hey, Susan? Yeah, the apartment was perfect.
Okay. Somebody tell me, was that a reasonable combination or a reasonable modification?
Yes,
It was a reasonable request, correct. But was it a combination or a modification? Remember, when we look at one of them is a physical change and one of them is a change in policy.
Modification.
Two different answers going on.
Modification.
Okay, anybody remember which one the modification was? Is that the physical change or what? Okay, so it's a reasonable combination. Thank you, though, because I'm sure you wasn't the only one that could remember. So it was a reasonable combination. So when it's a change in policy, it's a reasonable combination. When it's a physical change, it's a reasonable modification. So the policy that was in place there is first come, first served parking. I'm asking for a change in that policy to accommodate you with my disability. So it's a reasonable accommodation. So what if someone believes their right has been violated? They can file a complaint. They can call HUD, United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, Their telephone number is 404-331-5140. If they want to file a complaint with HUD, they have to file it 1 year from the date of discrimination. They can also reach out to a private attorney. If they want to file a complaint with the federal courts, they have to file it 2 years from the date of discrimination. You don't necessarily have to file a complaint with HUD first. In case you want to go in federal court, you can go directly into federal court if you would like, but it is a good rule of thumb to first file a complaint with HUD and then possibly go into federal court. Again, if they want to file a complaint with HUD, they have to file it 1 year from the date of discrimination. So if I go out of here right now and I go to Jackson Streets and I try to rent an apartment, and they say, well, we don't have anything available. And I have Mr. Hale to turn around and go right behind me and they have something available for him. And I say, you know what? I know it's because I'm a woman. I need to file that complaint 1 year from this day. Now, if I wait 5 years down the line, it doesn't apply anymore. Or you can call out. Sometimes I forget about our office. So our number is 1-877-352-2269. Now, we do have a service area, and we will show you that within the next couple of slides. So we take everything down from under Hines County. So all of the southern counties, and I'll show you that in just a couple of seconds. So what information will need in order to start an investigation process? Your name and address, the name and address of the person the complaint is against. If it's apartment complex, you can name the apartment complex. If you can, get the name of the particular person that you spoke with, get their information, the address of the housing that is involved, a description of the event that made you believe that your rights were violated. So you just say, well, I went in and I tried to rent an apartment, tell me they didn't have anything available, but I sent Mr. Hale in, they had something available for him. And you also have to give the date of the alleged discrimination. So I would say March 30th, 2023. So these are the areas that our particular office serves. If you will see within this yellow highlighted area, so it's things within under Hines and Rankin County. Now, if you remember at the beginning of my presentation, I said this is a federal law. So when I say that this is a federal law, that means it applies to all states. Now, as far as other states, they might add other additional protected classes besides the 7 that I additionally called out, but Mississippi does not have a state law, fair housing law. So we particularly only look at those 7 protected classes. Now, because it's a federal law, it applies to everyone, even the people outside of the area that we protect. So if it happens to anyone that you know that's outside of our service area, they can call the Mississippi Center for Legal Services, or they can call HEAL, who particularly targets the Jackson area. So I know as you guys get to graduate, you might want to move on to the coast, you might want to move to anywhere in our service area, you want to go buy a house. You say, you know what, I remember this lady that came and spoke to me when I was at JSU. On that particular day, I was hungry and she wouldn't let me leave. And I know that there's a law. And I'm going to call Mississippi Center for Justice because I'm in their service area. Outside of it, I also know that they can call again. Legal Services. Now, if you want to call us and say, I know that there's a law, but I know that you guys are outside of my service area, who can I call? You can also do that. Again, our number is 1-877-352-2269, and we'll point you in the right direction. You can always go on HUD's website and file it on your own too. Now, does anyone have any questions for me? In Zoom world, does anyone have any questions for me? Okay, so if anyone doesn't have any questions, I just want to remind you, I'll be here again at 1 o'clock, so you can see your friends. I can teach them about the Fair Housing Act law. The people who's here, you receive 2 papers when you walk in, the agenda and the evaluation form. We ask that you fill that evaluation form out and you give it to Ms. Denise or Ms. Katia on your way out. And again, you just stick around if you have any questions. I will be here. If you want to come back at 1 o'clock because you didn't understand something I said, come back. Invite a friend, invite one of your professors, invite somebody. We'll be here again at 1 o'clock. Thank you guys so much for coming out.